The Tolkien Road, Episode 53, The Silmarillion, Chapter 21, of Túrin Turambar, Part 1. Alright, go ahead. The Tolkien Road, 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 Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, a long walk through the works and philosophy of J.R.R. Tolkien. On this episode, we begin our discussion of Chapter 21 of the Silmarillion, of Túrin Turambar. This is a long one, so it's definitely going to take more than one episode to cover. It's also quite tragic and sad, so make sure you've got a box of tissues nearby. Speaking of tragedies, it would certainly be tragic if you missed this opportunity to leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes. It's easy to do, only takes a moment, and is the best way to show your appreciation for what we're doing here. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Tolkien Road, episode 53.
53.
This is John.
And Greta.
How are you doing there, faithful listeners and new listeners, if anybody happens to show up and just picked episode 53 as the place to start? So chapter 21 of Túrin Turambar.
Yep.
I have a feeling, well, this is definitely going to take us more than one episode because we didn't read any further than a certain point.
Right.
Because, you read this chapter, and it's a good chapter, but you get, it's not as, I would say, straight a read as Beren and Luthien, which is the other really long chapter in the book.
Right.
It's not as just like, it doesn't just like keep pulling you like Beren and Luthien does, but it's got its own, it's definitely one of the better tales in the Silmarillion.
Mm-hmm.
But sad.
Totally
it's a
sad.
tearjerker.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be talking about Túrin Turambar tonight, the first part of it, and we'll see how many more episodes we need. I think we'll probably just need one more, but we'll see when we get there.
Okay. So we may be doing 3?
Oh, just maybe. There's still a lot that happens, even past the point where we read. So.
Yep.
Okay. To start things off, we won't waste much time. We will go ahead and do our haiku time.
You got your business suit on tonight, huh, Johnny?
That's right.
Ready to just get after it.
I got my business mullet haircut today, too.
Awesome.
Business in the front, party in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I didn't really get a business mullet, so just for those at home.
I think we just lost a few listeners.
Probably.
Based on the fact that you didn't clarify that soon enough.
They just heard... They heard business mullet, and they're like... like people are like listening, like going along, like doing the dishes, or like, on a jog or something like that, or, driving to work or something like that, and they heard business mullet, and like as soon as I said that, they're like, oh! And they like hit the pause button.
And then they deleted this episode and all the others.
And then they threw their phone out the window if they were on the highway.
That would be definitely an overreaction to minor inconvenience.
Yes, well.
Mm-hmm.
Are we so sure that's such a minor inconvenience?
Well, it's probably not a minor inconvenience.
I did play a Foreigner song last time, so. Yeah.
You're painting yourself.
And before that, I was playing Dreamweaver by Bob Dylan.
I believe. That's by Bob Dylan?
Yeah, he wrote everything. He wrote every song.
Oh, right. But he didn't sing it. It's way too well sung for Bob Dylan to have sung it.
Oh, you've never heard Bob Dylan's version of it?
I don't want to hear it.
Dreamweaver.
Don't stop. You're hurting my ears. And now the other listeners that decided to hang with us despite the business mullet, now they're gone.
All right.
Dang. Before you alienate any more listeners, let's just do some haiku.
All right. Let's do this.
Okay. Rock,
paper, scissors, shoot.
Yes! I win!
I let you win.
You let me win?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going first because mine's not very good. Because I wrote it in like 2 seconds.
Okay.
Like before we started this episode. All right.
You put a little more effort into this. So let's hear it.
Well, sometimes I'm in the mood, sometimes I'm not. I was having writer's block, haikuer's block. Anyway, all right. Here's my poem for today for Túrin Turambar. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Túrin Turambar.
Túrin
Turambar.
Túrin Turambar.
That's like naming your kid like Bob Flag. Is it not? I mean, why would you do that?
All right, we'll get there. Just read your darn haiku.
Okay, fine.
We'll come back to that. We can talk about where the name Turambar comes from.
Okay, fine. Well, if your last name is okay. All right. Here's my haiku. Closer than brothers, boundless, sacrificial love, severed forever. That actually wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Closer than brothers, boundless, sacrificial love, severed forever. It's not bad for a last minute effort, if I do say so myself.
You should give yourself a pat on the back.
Patting myself on the back as we speak, and I'm going to pat myself on the back with both hands.
All right. Well, can you do it crosswise like this?
Of course I can. Super flex. There we go.
Yeah. It's like you're doing the Macarena.
Yeah, that's right. Now we've lost more listeners. Okay. John, just read your haiku. Sorry, guys.
We just see how quickly we can go. We can lose all of our listeners. So we got the business mullet. We got Bob Dylan singing Dreamweaver, and then we've got the Macarena going on.
And who has made all three of these comments? That would be you. Oh man. Well, when our listenership dies off, we know who to blame.
Yes.
Yes. And I'll read your haiku.
Okay. For some, to touch is to make gold. For Túrin, to touch is tragedy.
Oh. To touch is tragedy. To touch is tragedy. That's 6 syllables.
Touch is tragedy.
Oh.
For some, to touch is to make gold. For Túrin, to touch is tragedy.
Oh.
575.
I see. You got all fancy on me.
Well,
I got confused.
Be careful about accusing people of messing up their haikus next time.
Well, next
violating
time
the
haiku,
sacred haiku rules. All right, Mary Grace sent one in.
Awesome, Mary Grace. Let's hear it.
I loved. She sent me an email and it was like, or like she left a comment on the last episode, and she was like, 4 days ago, right? And and she's like, I'm so sorry, I only wrote one haiku this time. My life has like been so busy, and I'm just like, you wrote a haiku 4 days early.
Yeah.
For someone else's podcast. That's pretty
good.
Yeah, and like usually, she's writing like long form poems and that kind of stuff for us. So.
Well, she's got high standards.
Yeah.
I admire that.
Yeah, me too. Okay, I'm gonna read her haiku.
Yeah, do it.
Túrin Turambar, loyal and strong, yet another with doom accursed.
Oh. Yet another with doom accursed. Accursed. Yes. That's a great word, accursed. Mm-hmm. That makes you sound smart when you say it.
Yeah.
How's your day been? It's been accursed.
Accursed. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be a weird thing to say to someone.
That would be a weird thing to say to somebody.
Hey, Bob, how's your day going, man? Like you're just at the water cooler and... Hey, Bob, how's your day going? It's been really cursed. Really, really accursed.
Really
accursed so far.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. You gonna be watching that game tonight, man? It's hard to hear that.
Oh.
All right. Moving on.
Yeah. That was good. Thank you, Mary Grace.
Yes, thank you. All right. So, Túrin Turambar.
None from Josh?
No, nothing from Josh.
Dang.
Nothing from Josh.
We need to call his professors and tell them to stop giving him so much work so that he can't send in haikus.
Yeah.
Our podcast is more important than your college course, so...
Well.
What gives?
Well, I would say probably you're wrong about that.
Well, maybe in their eyes, but not in mine.
Well,
anyway, as long as Josh is still listening, that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll get back on the horse at some point.
Yeah, he will. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
I know.
Túrin Turambar is a challenging chapter. I mean,
it is a challenging chapter.
It's a lot to try to encompass in one haiku.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I totally agree.
All right. So, as you probably noticed, though you haven't finished the whole chapter yet, right?
No, I'm close, but I haven't finished the whole
But
one.
you probably get this vibe that it's Túrin is kind of a tragic figure, right?
He's definitely a tragic figure,
Yeah.
and you can't really figure him out. He's kind of an enigma.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He is enigmatic.
I can't decide if he's good or bad.
Well,
I think he's mostly good,
mm-hmm.
but then he does some things where you're like,
Well, that's partly what we're going to discuss in that chapter, and there's been some interesting discussions on that question about like how should we view this story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how should we view the character of Túrin? Does he do it to himself, or is he the victim of fate, right? How much of it is him doing it, him causing his own problems, and how much of it is just that bad stuff. He was just like born under a curse, and bad stuff happens to him. We know that he is born under a curse, right? Because Húrin, Morgoth, at the end of the last chapter, lays a curse upon.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about that is that curse is laid on Húrin chronologically when Túrin is a little bit older.
Right. So it was after he was born.
It was after he was born.
Yeah.
Right.
The curse was laid. Yeah.
So he's a tragic character. I wrote down like something. There's something kind of Greek about it all, like a Sophocles play. And it's really interesting because I wrote that down and then I looked at Tolkien's letters.
What, Sophocles?
A Sophocles, right? Sophocles play, right?
Oh.
Drama. He was an ancient Greek playwright.
Oh.
And it's interesting because I looked up Túrin Turambar in the index of Tolkien's letters, and there's not many references to this story, even though it's one of his earliest. But the one that I found was in the Waldman letter, which is which is the prologue to the we did
earlier
to the to most editions of the Silmarillion.
Right.
And in that it says, there are other stories almost equally full in treatment and equally independent and yet linked in the general history. There is the Children of Húrin, the tragic tale of Túrin Turambar and his sister Niniel, of which Túrin is the hero. A figure that might be said by people who like that sort of thing, though it is not very useful, to be derived from elements in Sigurd the Volsung, Oedipus, and the Finnish Kullervo. So Oedipus is Sophocles' most famous play, right? Oedipus Rex. So, and if you think about the plot of Oedipus, it really deals in those same kind of things, like fate. How much of it is fate? Mm-hmm. How much of what this character suffers is fate, and how much of it is brought upon by themselves, right? And it's really sort of a mixture of those two.
Right.
Okay. The interesting thing will be to see as we go further on, what is the effect? Because it's been said that the intended effect of a play like Oedipus, the works of playwrights like Sophocles, is catharsis, right? It's this kind of outpouring of all of this, like, why kind of emotion, like why are we afflicted with all this tragedy and heartache in this life, right? And so it'll be interesting to see as we go on how much of that is true. You'll definitely be able to see some of the Oedipal stuff going on, I think, in the story. Anyway, I also wrote down that it reminds me a little bit of of the book of Job in the Bible. Not as much as Oedipus, but somewhat of the book of Job, just because Túrin in a way almost seems like this figure that bad stuff just keeps happening to.
You just can't catch a break.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's almost like, and with the background of, it's not an exact correlation, but with the background of Morgoth, like having his father, and having imprisoned his father and captured his father and imprisoned him, and then just kind of the silence of Iluvatar and the other character, and like the Valar, is all this bad stuff happens to Túrin,
That's a good point. I can see that.
Anyway, he's just kind of an interesting figure in that way, and maybe Tolkien, I don't know, it'd be really fascinating to be able to go back and pick Tolkien's brain about this particular story, just because he didn't say as much directly about it.
Right.
But anyway, so we can let's talk about it. I did, this is one, like Beren and Luthien, this is one of those stories that Tolkien intended to be a long poem, right? So he wrote this as a long poem, and it's called, it's written in there, I'll just read it from here to just make sure I get it right. Narni Hin Húrin, Mîm Húrin.
Is that like the Lay of Túrin? Is that what it translates to?
No, I think it's the tale of the Children of Húrin.
Oh, right? Gotcha.
Yeah. So, I'll read just a bit of the poem here, just so we have a flavor of what it's like. Okay. So this is from.
What did he write first?
No, I think he started writing Beren and Luthien first. The Lay of Luthien, right?
Oh, I meant between.
Oh, he wrote the poem first.
He wrote the poem, first, and then
before
he wrote
this was written long before. Now it wasn't published until afterwards, but that's because none of this stuff was published until after Tolkien died.
Right, got it.
But yeah, this was written in like the 20s, and then I think he took a lot of the poems he had written and turned them just into main like prose form stories. Mm-hmm. All right, so this is from the Lays of Beleriand, which is book, I think, 3 of the History of Middle-earth. Make sure that's right. Yeah, it's book 3 of the History of Middle-earth. All right. Lo, the Lady Morwen in the land of shadows waited in the woodland for her well-beloved. But he came never from the combat home. No tidings told her whether taken or dead, or lost in flight he lingered yet. Laid waste his lands, and his lieges slain, and men unmindful of his mighty lordship, dwelt in Dor Lomin, and dealt unkindly with his widowed wife. And she went with child, who a son must succor, now sadly orphaned. Túrin, Thaliodrin of tender years. Then in days of blackness was her daughter born, and was named Nienor, a name of tears, that in language of eld is lamentation. Then her thoughts turned to Thingol of Elf-King, and the dancer of Doriath, his daughter Tenuviel, whom the boldest of the brave, Baron Imabwed, had won to wife. He once had known firmest friendship to his fellow in arms, Thalion Erithomrad. So thought she now, and said to her son, My sweetest child, our friends are few, and thy father comes not. Thou must fare afar to the folk of the wood, where Thingol is throned in the 1,000 caves. If he remember Morwen and thy mighty sire, he will fain foster thee, and feats of arms he will teach thee, the trade of targe and sword, and Thalion's son no thrall shall be. But remember thy mother when thy manhood nears. All right, so that's just a little flavor, and it's that's essentially how the story begins in this chapter as well. Yeah. So we get a little snippet about Huor, and we'll come back to his family, right? That's what actually the very first thing in this chapter. But we back up a little bit. We go back a few years at the beginning of this chapter to before even the story of Beren and Luthien.
Right.
All right. So it says Morwen, daughter of Beregond, was the wife of Húrin, lord of Dor Lomin. And their son was Túrin, who was born in the year that Baron Erchamion came upon Luthien in the forest of Neldoreth. A daughter they had also, who was called Liliath, which is laughter, and she was beloved by Túrin her brother. But when she was 3 years old, there came a pestilence to Hithlum, born on an evil wind out of Angband, and she died. Right? So, very first thing in his story is that he has one sister named Liliath, but she dies at a young age. Right? Dies tragically at a young age. Probably heavy symbolism in the fact there that her name was Laughter, right? Yep. And we see that Túrin loved her, right? They were close. And then at only the age of 3, she dies. So immediately Túrin is familiar, even as a child, with this kind of seemingly random tragedy, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's not entirely random because it says it was a pestilence born on an evil wind out of Angband. But even then, it sounds kind of, that's maybe their equivalent of saying it was kind of random, right? That this happened, right? Yeah. No one really knows what the cause of it was. Excuse me, thirsty. Okay. And then, so Túrin grows, so a few years go by. Túrin gets a little older, and the Easterlings, remember the people who betrayed the people who betrayed the elves and the Edain in the Nirnaeth Arnoediad in the last chapter. They come into the land of Dor-lómin, right? And they start settling there.
Well, this is before the battle, right?
It's kind of setting the stage for the battle.
Okay.
So they come into the land, and they despise the remnant of the people of Hador, and they oppressed them and took their lands and their goods and enslaved their children. But so great was the beauty and majesty of the Lady of Dor-lómin, who is Morwen, that the Easterlings were afraid and dared not to lay hands upon her or her household. And they whispered among themselves, saying that she was perilous and a witch skilled in magic and in league with the elves. Yet she was now poor and without aid, save that she was succored secretly by a kinswoman of Húrin named Iron, whom Brada, an Easterling, had taken as his wife. And Morwen feared greatly that Túrin would be taken from her and enslaved. So Morwen is afraid that the Easterlings are, who are their rivals in a way, have just kind of come into their land uninvited and have shown themselves. And I think this may all be kind of happening within the midst of, what's going down in the Nirnaeth Arnoediad. So there's this awareness that the Easterlings are not good people, right? They're treacherous people. And so she's afraid that given the fact that they've already taken all these other people to be slaves, that they're going to take Túrin as well. So it comes into her heart to send him away in secret to Thingol.
So why do we not hear anything about Húrin here? Because he's not been captured, right? This is before the battle, right?
Yeah.
So Húrin's still around, right?
Well, it says, therefore, in the autumn of the year of lamentation, Morwen sent Túrin forth over the mountains with 2 aged servants, bidding them find entry, if they could, into the kingdom of Doriath. Thus was the fate of Túrin woven, which is full told in that lay that is called Narni Hín Húrin. I'm trying to think of the timeline. Húrin and Huor, of course, were in Gondolin for some time as well, right? And so I'm trying to recall if maybe there's, maybe some of that is overlapping here. It said, go back to like page 160. Thereafter, Húrin, son of Galdor, ruled the house of Hador in Dor-lómin and served Fingon. Húrin was of less stature than his fathers or his son after him, but he was tireless and enduring in body, lithe and swift after the manner of his mother's kin, Harith of the Haladin. His wife was Morwen Elethwin, daughter of Beregond of the house of Beor, she who fled from Dorthonion with Rian, daughter of Belegund, and Emeldir, the mother of Beren. So, the exact timeline I'm not exactly clear on, but what we do know is that Túrin is sent away to Thingol right around the time that the Nirnaeth Arnoediad happens. So it could be that Húrin is just away a lot because he's having to help out with the battle against Morgoth. Right. But then eventually he's captured, of course.
Right.
Of course, Húrin couldn't have been gone too long because Morwen, soon after sending Túrin away, gives birth to Nienor, right? So, and we know that she's the daughter of Húrin. And interestingly enough, Nienor's name is morning, right?
Yeah,
Nienor's name means morning.
Which is the opposite of what their other daughter's name.
Right.
Right.
But Túrin and his companions, passing through great perils, came at last to the borders of Doriath, and there they were found by Beleg Strongbow, chief of the march wardens of King Thingol, who led them to Menegroth. Then Thingol received Túrin and took him even to his own fostering, in honor of Húrin the Steadfast. For Thingol's mood was changed towards the houses of the elf friends. Thereafter messengers went north to Hithlum, bidding Morwen leave Dor-lómin and return with them to Doriath. But still she would not leave the house in which she had dwelt with Húrin. And when the elves departed, she sent with them the dragon helm of Dor-lómin, greatest of the heirlooms of the house of Hador. So they're trying to get Morwen to come along as well, but she refuses to. And Túrin essentially grows up in Menegroth as is almost like a son of Túrin, right? They're very close.
Like son,
Yes.
Son of Thingol.
I'm sorry, a son of Thingol. That's right.
So what is this dragon helm? Is it like a mail of thing? Is it like it's obviously something that's worn.
I think it's like a helmet.
Oh, it's a helmet. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
You want one?
A helmet?
A dragon helm?
A dragon helm, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds pretty sweet.
Okay. Maybe one of the listeners will send you one.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. I'd wear it all the time. So Morwen doesn't come, but she sends this heirloom.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Right. So Túrin grows up. He's several years go by, and everybody knows that Túrin is favored by Thingol. And at this, there's an elf that gets a little bit upset at this. Cyros was his name.
Yep.
He was a Nondor, a high in the councils of the king. So, like, he was not one of the Noldor or the Teleri, or even the Sindar. He was a Nondor, which means he came over kind of trailing all of the people who originally tried to come. Right.
Yeah.
So he's a green elf, but he lives in Doriath, and he is of the court of Thingol, and he does not like Túrin. He looks on Túrin and says, if the men of he basically just looks down on him. And at one point he says to him, if the men of Hithlum are so wild and fell, of what sort are the women of that land? Do they run like deer, clad only in their hair? So he's just kind of picking on Túrin.
He's just being
punk.
Yeah, he's being a total punk.
You
he's
think
not even picking on Túrin, like he's picking on like women that he doesn't even know. Like
but the insult is at Túrin, right?
Well, yeah, it is, but
he's trying to get under Túrin's skin.
I understand. Yeah, but he's basically insulting Túrin's this heritage, right?
But that's the whole thing. Like talking about somebody's mama,
Yeah,
don't talk about my mama. You can make fun of me, but you don't talk about my mama, right? Especially Túrin, who knows that his mama is in a bad situation and who basically sent him away in order to protect him, right?
Yeah,
and is has it hard back where she is, right? So that seems to be where that's coming from. So on the next day, Túrin throws a drinking vessel at him, and Cyros is grievously hurt. On the next day,
must have been a pretty serious drinking vessel.
Well, everything was pretty serious back in those days,
especially in Thingol's house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the next day, Cyros waylaid Túrin as he set out from Minegroth to return to the marches. But Túrin overcame him and set him to run naked as a hunted beast through the woods.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It was like
payback.
Total payback. So that was basically what Cyros was, picking fun. That was basically the basis of his insult, right? For Túrin, and now he's the naked one. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not funny for very long, because Cyros, fleeing in terror before him, fell into the chasm of the stream, and his body was broken on a great rock in the water.
That's a horrible mental image.
Yeah, no, it is. That you can kind of see that unfolding.
You totally can. Yeah.
And naked too, man.
Yeah, insult to injury.
So it's not that Túrin actually kills him, but I'm sure Túrin was like, "Oh my gosh, what have I done?" And he's now worried that he's going to be in exile, right?
Right.
After all, Túrin has to be aware that he's merely a man in this realm of elves, and here he has killed an elf, and so that's not going to help him gain any favor with other elves. Or he's something he's done has led to the death of another elf. So Túrin flees.
Yep.
Beleg, meanwhile, Beleg Strongbow, who had become close friends with Túrin, goes to...
Wait, I'm sorry, real quick.
Yeah.
So one of the guys that's with him, basically says, come back, right? Thingol will forgive you.
Right.
It's okay, come back. And he says no, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's kind of a pride issue, don't you think? I mean, that was totally a stupid decision on Túrin's part.
Well, that's where we go with this, right? We jump forward a little bit. Beleg goes and finds Túrin, tries to get him to come back. So let's read that. Go down to bottom of page 200, where it says, "Then Beleg told Túrin," and just start reading there.
No, but I thought somebody tried to come get him to go back initially. didn't he? And he bade Túrin return with him to Menegroth and abide the judgment of the king, seeking his pardon. Like Mablung. Right? I'm saying
True.
Before Beleg, somebody else tried to get him to come back.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the point, okay, we can come back to that, but I'm just saying let's start reading here, and then we can talk more about that point in general.
Oh,
right?
okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. So where do you want me to start? Then Beleg?
Yeah.
Then Beleg told Túrin of King Thingol's pardon, and he sought to persuade him by all means that he might to return with him to Doriath, saying that there was great need of his strength and valor on the north marches of the realm. Of late, the orcs have found a way down out of Tarnfruin, he said. They have made a road through the pass of Anach. I do not remember it, said Túrin. Never did we go so far from the borders, said Beleg, but you have seen the peaks of the Crissigrim far off, and to the east the dark walls of Gorgoroth. Anach lies between, above the high springs of Mindeb, a hard and dangerous road, yet many come by it now, and Dimbar, which used to be in peace, is falling under the black hand, and the men of Brethil are troubled. We are needed there. But in the pride of his heart, Túrin refused the pardon of the king, and the words of Beleg were of no avail to change his mood, and he for his part urged Beleg to remain with him in the lands west of Sirion. But that Beleg would not do, and he said, Hard you are, Túrin, and stubborn. Now the turn is mine. If you wish indeed to have the strong bow beside you, look for me in Dimbar, for thither I shall return.
All right. So it calls it out right there, right?
Yeah,
in the pride of his heart.
Yep.
Right. And that's what I was referring to.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Túrin shows himself prideful here, right?
Not just once, but twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe the first time you could even say that he was scared.
Scared, yeah.
There was maybe more scare. There was maybe more fear in that. Because he doesn't maybe they're just trying to lure him back in order to punish him.
Maybe, but I mean,
go ahead.
He had to trust in Thingol's love for him. I mean, it's very clear how Thingol, like their relationship. Thingol obviously considered him a son.
Yeah, but you know how these things can work.
But we don't. It doesn't even say anything that this guy, this green elf, was anything special to Thingol.
It does.
All it says is that he was in his court.
It says, of the people of the Nondor, high in the councils of the king. Right?
Okay, high in the councils. So that just means he was like a counselor, right? It's not like it was his
BFF
BFF or something.
Well, okay, if it was just some random elf, then I would agree with you. But he's a counselor of the king. Like, he's high in his council, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't say one way or the other whether the Thingol liked him or not. It just says that he was high in his council. And furthermore,
so
he's an elf.
I see. Yeah.
I'm just saying. Maybe you're right. I'm just saying if I'm Túrin and I've just what I've done has just resulted in the death of an elf that's high in the council of Thingol. I'm going to be afraid no matter what. Even if I know somebody loves me and cares deeply for me, if I've done something that's caused a huge problem, then I'm going to be scared. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's just that's just especially human nature.
Human
right?
nature. I guess I would just think that he would still take the chance. I mean, because really, what's the worst that could happen is that he gets executed by Thingol. I mean, really, and the chances of that are very small.
Well, yeah, that is the worst that could happen.
Well, it is the worst that could happen, but that's most likely not going to happen. I mean, what he's probably going to do, if anything, would be banish him, right? So he just does that for himself. Anyway,
exactly.
He rolls the dice, and it is what it is. But I think I'm just saying, if it were me, I would have taken my chances and gone back and apologized and groveled at the feet of Thingol and begged for mercy.
Okay, well, all I'm saying is that I can see why he didn't do it the first time. The second time, Tolkien, the narrator makes the point that it's a pride thing at this point, right?
Because he's been assured of Thingol's mercy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he still doesn't come back.
Yeah. So for all of the things that happened to him, for the tragic touch of Túrin, here we have his own will interfering with it all, right?
This is not just fate. This is his choice.
This is his choice, exactly. So, all right. So Beleg then goes back and reports this all to Thingol and Melion in the Thousand Caves. Mm-hmm. And they talk about what more they could possibly do to help them. In the meanwhile, Beleg is given a sword. He chooses Anglakel, which was a sword of great worth, and it was so named because it was made of iron that fell from heaven as a blazing star. It would cleave all earth-delved iron. One other sword only in Middle-earth was like to it. This sword does not enter into this tale, though it was made of the same ore by the same smith. And that smith was Eol, the Dark Elf, who took Arathel, Turgon's sister, to wife.
We read about him
right
before, right?
Yeah. So Eol is the one that made Anglakel.
Okay.
Anglakel. So he takes Anglakel.
And Beleg willingly goes after. Like, he asks Thingol's permission to go. It's not like Thingol
He's not done with
Túrin
Túrin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He cares deeply about Túrin as well.
He does, yeah. And Thingol didn't order him. Like, he's not acting under Thingol's orders. Like, he requested permission to do this, yeah.
Right. You're right.
And Thingol's grateful. He's very grateful, which is why he gives him the sword. Yeah. He lets him choose any of his swords.
Maybe Thingol needs to get off his rump and help
Seriously,
out himself.
I know, right? Lazy bones.
Yeah. He's like, dude, why would I leave this place? This is my 1,000 caves, man. This is my elf cave.
I can't find my way out, even if I wanted to. There's 1,000 caves here. It's like
sitting here with my hot Maiar wife. I mean, why would I leave this place? I got it pretty awesome here. Morgoth and his minions can't find us.
Yeah, exactly. Why would he leave? Yeah.
Anyway. So Thingol hands Anglakel to Beleg, and Melion looks at the blade and says, "There is malice in this sword. The dark heart of the smith still dwells in it. It will not love the hand it serves, neither will it abide with you long." So apparently this sword has a personality, and it does not like Beleg.
Yeah.
It has the personality of Eol. It has the heart of Eol in it.
Do you think this is like a prideful thing on Beleg's part too?
I don't read it that way.
Or a stubborn part? I didn't either. I was just wondering. He says, "Nonetheless, I will wield it while I may." I don't know. If somebody told me that about something I was holding, I'd be like, okay, let me get another one.
Do you have any other swords?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know. Maybe. I could see that.
I mean, there was a reason that he chose that sword, and I can see why he would have wanted it, but he apparently didn't, have much respect for Melion's prophecy.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that Beleg receives is Lembas from Melion, right? Which this Lembas shows up in the Lord of the Rings as well. It's the Elvish waybread. So we'll read this little snippet here. "Another gift I will give to you, Cuthalion," said Melion. "That shall be your help in the wild, and the help also of those whom you choose." And she gave him store of Lembas, the waybread of the elves, wrapped in the leaves of silver, and the threads that bound it were sealed at the knots with the seal of the queen, a wafer of white wax shaped as a single flower of Telperion. For according to the customs of the Eldalier, the keeping and giving of Lembas belonged to the queen alone. In nothing did Melion show greater favor to Túrin than in this gift, for the Eldar had never before allowed men to use this waybread, and seldom did so again. So Beleg departs with these gifts from Menegroth and went back to the northern marches where he had his lodges and many friends. Then in Dimbar the orcs were driven back, and Anglakel rejoiced to be unsheathed. But when the winter came and war was stilled, suddenly his companions missed Beleg, and he returned to them no more. So, let's pause there.
Okay.
And we'll do a quick commercial break, and we'll come back and continue.
Sounds
pick
good.
up with Mîm the Dwarf.
Awesome. Don't go away. Hey, Tolkien Roadsters. What's shaking? Greta Carswell here, just getting my groove on to the Tolkien Haiku theme music. Man, that's an awesome song. You know what else is awesome? Feedback on the Tolkien Road on iTunes. Oh yeah, you heard me right. iTunes feedback is one of the best ways you can tell the world about your undying love for this podcast. Because it lets those knuckleheads at Apple know that the Tolkien Road is where it's at. I mean, come on. Why didn't they know that already? Am I right? So next time you're waiting in line to pick up some delicious tacos, surfing the World Wide Web, brushing up on a Tom Bombadil factoid, or keeping it real in whatever way you keep it real, pop on over to iTunes and let the human race know what you think about the Tolkien Road. We're all dying to know, for reals. Party on, y'all.
All right, moving on. So, Mîm the Petty-Dwarf. Mîm the Petty-Dwarf.
Oh, or Mîm. Is that how you say that? I was wondering.
How did you say it in your head when you're
Mîm.
reading it? Mîm?
Mîm.
No, it's Mîm.
I like that better. I like Mîm better than Mîm.
Yeah, that little hat that the eye has is called a circumflex.
Got it.
And if you look in the pronunciation guide, you actually can miss this because they don't show the symbol. But if you look in the little pronunciation guide, page 311, at the very last note, the very last little paragraph there below E, it says, a circumflex accent in stressed monosyllables in Sindarin denotes the particularly long vowel heard in such words, thus, Hîn Húrin. But in Adunaic, Numenorean, and Kuzdul, Dwarvish, names, the circumflex is simply used to denote long vowels. So either way, it's a long vowel, which in this case, an I as a long vowel is E, right?
Okay.
All right, in the way that Tolkien would have thought of it.
Got it.
So, Mîm the dwarf, and I checked out some different, Tolkien fan sites just to, verify this.
Yeah.
Thought. So.
And you were right.
Yeah.
It is Mîm.
Yeah. Somebody needs to start a meme about how you pronounce Mîm's name.
I was wondering how we could work that in.
Yeah.
That's a good...
Like show an angry dwarf, like a picture of an angry dwarf being like, the name's Mîm, or something like that.
Name's Mîm. Hey, that's not bad.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good start.
Like this thing you're looking at right here, sitting around other people.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, okay. So, Mîm. Mîm comes from a race of dwarves that were basically the early dwarves to enter into Beleriand, and they were not like the greater dwarves that came later, but they were sort of a people that kept to themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And hence, that's sort of where they got the name Petty Dwarves.
And it kind of died out, right?
Yeah. So Mîm and his two sons are like the only petty dwarves left at this point. It's crazy to think they've been hunted, by the elves, right?
Yeah.
And you really like those elves, man.
Yeah.
Like, as wonderful as they should be, they could be pretty awful.
Yeah. 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 Why would you hunt other humans or like other living,
Other whatever they are.
Yeah. I mean, not animals, right? I mean, they're other.
Of course, to the elves, they may have
creatures.
seemed like animals.
They might.
Advanced, animals.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But they're obviously living, breathing, like thinking human something.
Yeah, I think it's a credit to Tolkien that he works stuff like that in here. Like that, the elves, for as much as he makes the elves out to be these, wonderful, cultured, sophisticated creatures, they were still capable of great cruelty.
Yeah.
And pride and just all these awful traits as well, right? Yeah, it's interesting to think about that, just in the context of of Tolkien's lifetime and how especially like during the time of the Nazis. The Nazis were definitely treating other races of people as inferior, right?
Right.
And like less than worthy. Like the Nazis were this superior race, right?
Are you calling elves Nazis?
No, I'm just saying it's interesting that again, Tolkien did not do that in his works, right? He did not topically
saying that tongue in cheek.
Make a allegory, right? He didn't allegorize, but you definitely see themes overlap, right?
Definitely.
Anyway, just a little aside.
Yeah.
So Mîm and so Beleg starts out. Let's see. I'm just going to read this part. Now, when Beleg parted from the outlaws and returned into Doriath, Túrin led them away westward out of Sirion's Vale, for they grew weary of their life without rest, ever watchful and in fear of pursuit, and they sought for a safer lair. And it chanced at a time of evening that they came upon 3 dwarves who fled before them. But one that lagged behind was seized and thrown down, and a man of the company took his bow and let fly an arrow at the others as they vanished in the dusk. Now the dwarf that they had taken was named Mîm, and he pleaded for his life before Túrin, and offered his ransom to lead them to his hidden halls, which none might find without his aid. Then Túrin pitied Mîm and spared him, and he said, "Where is your house?" Right? So Túrin and his little band of brothers, they come upon the three dwarves and worried that they might be dangerous or that they might expose them to other more insidious forces. They capture them. Right.
Yep.
Two of the three escape, and Mîm is the one they catch. Mîm, in exchange for his life and his freedom, offers to lead them back to his house, which is on top of Amon Ruth. If you look in map, by the way, you can see where this is. So Amon Ruth is, if you look at Doriath, right there in the middle.
Yep.
Right, and then the western little arm of Doriath, like just south of that, there's Amon Ruth. You see that?
Oh yeah.
Look, little mountain all there by itself.
Yes.
So, or it's more like a hill, like a large hill, but so you can see they're not terribly far from Doriath right here. But Mîm leads them to his house, and when they return to the house, and they find out that little arrow that one of them let fly at the dwarves that ran off, that happened to hit one of the other dwarves.
Right.
And so that leads to the death of Mîm's son. And so now there's only two petty dwarves left. One, Mîm, and then his other son.
Keem.
Where is it?
Keem.
No, that Keem was the one that got killed by the arrow.
Oh, right. They all rhyme, so I can't keep them straight.
Well, the third one doesn't rhyme, I don't think.
Oh.
I may be wrong. I hear you speak like it.
You could just say the one son that didn't die.
Yeah, well.
Come with me if you want to not die.
Yeah. Oh,
did they not mention him?
I thought it began with an F.
Maybe
I'm wrong.
I'm sure we'll come across it.
Yeah, we probably will. That's how these things usually work.
Yeah.
So, Mîm forgives Túrin. Túrin, basically says, basically in so many words says, "I'm sorry that I've done this."
Right.
Right, that we did this and killed your son. Mîm seems to forgive Túrin. They move on from it. But we do learn that Mîm really hates the Eldar. He really hates the dwarves. If you look on 204...
He really hates the dwarves?
I'm sorry, the elves. Elves, dwarves, what's the difference?
Okay. Except that they hate each other
right.
and hunt each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On 204, right there in the middle of the page, it says, "They loved none but themselves, and if they feared and hated the orcs, they hated the Eldar no less." This is the petty dwarves they're talking about.
Right, yeah.
And the exiles most of all, the Noldor.
Right.
For the Noldor, they said, had stolen their lands and their homes. Long ere King Finrod Felagund came over the sea, the caves of Nargothrond were discovered by them, and by them its delving was begun. And beneath the crown of Amon Ruth, the bald hill, the slow hands of the petty dwarves had bored and deepened the caves through the long years that they dwelt there, untroubled by the grey elves of the woods. But now at last they had dwindled and died out of Middle-earth, all save Mîm and his two sons. And Mîm was old, even in the reckoning of dwarves, old and forgotten. And in his halls the smithies were idle, and the axes rusted, and their name was remembered only in ancient tales of Doriath and Nargothrond.
So were they done wrong by the Noldor? Is that what this is saying?
I think they certainly think so.
Yeah.
Right?
So basically they did all the work
Mm-hmm.
to build this stuff. And then the Grey Elves just came in and took it over? Is that what this was saying?
Not the Grey Elves, the Noldor.
Oh, the
right.
I see. Untroubled by the... I see, okay.
Right.
Got it. Okay. They're basically displaced by the Noldor.
Sounds like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So Túrin stays there some time. But eventually he's wondering about and he meets back up with Beleg.
Yeah, Beleg finds him.
Right.
Which is like a minor miracle, really.
Why do you say that?
Well, like this place that he's living, right, with Mîm is really well hidden. Is it not?
It is.
But he found it.
That's true.
So, I'm just saying. It's not like they were like hanging out in broad daylight in the middle of an open field.
There's the name. Going forward to 205. Top of 205. And because Beleg was strong and enduring, far-sighted in mind as in eye, he came to be held in honor among the outlaws. But the hatred of Mîm for the elf that had come into Bar and Donwedd grew ever greater.
Yeah.
And he sat with Eban, his son, in the deepest shadows of his house, speaking to none. But Túrin paid now little heed to the dwarf. And when winter passed and spring came, they had sterner work to do.
So Mîm has no trouble with Túrin, right? Because Túrin's a dude. He's a man, right?
That's what it would seem, yeah.
But when Beleg shows up, who is an elf, is Beleg Noldor?
Beleg is, I think he's a Sindar.
Oh, okay.
So he's an elf.
But he is an elf.
Yeah. Let me double check that. So,
and that seems to be when Mîm really starts to get upset, right? Like that's when he kind of goes into his tank and sits in a corner and pouts and gives everybody the cold shoulder.
Right.
Right.
So yeah, Mîm does not have any love for Beleg, even if he does like Túrin and his outlaw companions.
Right.
He's not a friend of.
Okay.
It's bad that Beleg has come, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And so even as we learn this, this next paragraph is very ominous. Who knows now the counsels of Morgoth? Who can measure the reach of his thought? Who had been Melkor, mighty among the Ainur of the great song, and sat now, a dark lord upon a dark throne in the north, weighing in his malice all the tidings that came to him, and perceiving more of the deeds and purposes of his enemies than even the wisest of them feared, save only Melion the queen. To her often the thought of Morgoth reached out, and there was foiled. Right? So we have this little interjection of Morgoth's counsel. So all the time you get this sense that all the time this is going on, Morgoth is plotting something.
Yeah.
Right.
It's very dark.
Yes, indeed. And so Angband, the might of Angband is moved, and as the long fingers of a groping hand, the forerunners of his armies probed the ways into Beleriand. And they come down this ancient road into the regions where Túrin and Beleg are hiding out right now. All right. And ere long, Amon-Ruth was ringed with spies. So in the waning of the year, Mîm the dwarf and Eban his son went out from Bar in Donwedd to gather roots in the wild for their winter store, and they were taken captive by orcs. And then for a second time, Mîm promised to guide his enemies by the secret paths to his home on Amon-Ruth. The only contingency is he says, I only do it as long as you promise not to hurt Túrin, right? Not to slay Túrin.
Right.
And they're like, sure, we won't slay him, we'll just kidnap him.
Right.
Right? We'll just throw him in a bag.
Right.
And so Mîm betrays their hideout, betrays Túrin and Beleg's hideout. And Túrin is captured as he fights, and Ned is cast over him as he fights. And Beleg, it appears, and we'll go ahead and read this a little bit. Go ahead and read this and at length.
And at length, when all was silent again, Mîm crept out of the shadows of his house, and as the sun rose over the mists of Sirion, he stood beside the dead men on the hilltop. But he perceived that not all those that lay there were dead, for by one his gaze was returned, and he looked in the eyes of Beleg the elf. Then, with hatred long stored, Mîm stepped up to Beleg and drew forth the sword
Anglakel,
that lay beneath the body of one that had fallen beside him. But Beleg, stumbling up, seized back the sword and thrust it at the dwarf, and Mîm in terror fled, wailing from the hilltop. And Beleg cried after him, The vengeance of the house of Hador will find you yet. Now Beleg was sorely wounded, but he was mighty among the elves of Middle-earth, and he was moreover a master of healing. Therefore he did not die, and slowly his strength returned, and he sought in vain among the dead for Túrin to bury him. But he found him not, and then he knew that Húrin's son was yet alive and taken to Angband.
All right. So Beleg survives, and Mîm runs off, fleeing in terror. All right. Túrin is captured.
Right.
Right. So that's where we are. Beleg manages to escape from all this, and so he's going to be on the trail trying to save Túrin again.
Yep.
In the meantime, he meets this new figure, Gwendor. Right. He meets this new guy, Gwendor.
Beleg does.
Beleg does.
Yeah.
That's right. Gwendor is the son of Gwilyn, and he is from Nargothrond. Right.
Yeah.
And
he had been a prisoner, right, at Angband.
Right, he had been
escaped.
He had been a prisoner at Angband. For Gwendor was now but a bent and fearful shadow of his former shape and mood. When near Niath Arnoediad, that lord of Nargothrond rode with rash courage to the very doors of Angband, and there was taken. So remember, he's one of the guys that when the who was it? It was Gelmir. Right, Gelmir was who had been a prisoner right before during the Near Niath Arnoediad.
Mm-hmm.
They had put forward this prisoner in order to kind of get the western flank to charge. Right, that was his. I think it was brother, his brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So he went charging forward.
Right,
and he made it through, but then he got captured.
And they got captured.
Yeah,
that's right. So, Beleg meets Gwendor. And Gwendor is able to relate to him that there was a man among these orcs that Gwendor had spotted as he was escaping south, back towards Nargothrond.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, a great storm rode up out of the west, and lightning glittered on the shadowy mountains far away as Beleg and Gwendor crept toward the dell. And so they're able to track down the dwarfs, and they're able to attack them while they're sleeping.
Right.
And
wait, you mean they're able to track down the orcs?
I'm sorry, the orcs, dwarves,
Dang,
elves.
it's a good thing I'm here, Carswell.
I know. I keep on messing up the names.
Crazy.
There's a lot. There's a lot in this chapter.
There is a lot. There's a lot, but that doesn't give me an excuse to keep messing up. Just saying.
Yeah, orcs, dwells.
Get it straight.
Dwells.
Dwells.
Dwarks.
No, it should be morks.
Morks. Why?
Like men orcs. Men. Menks.
Anyway, Túrin this whole time has fallen asleep, even as Beleg and Gwendor are killing the orcs that have captured him.
Right.
And it says that Beleg and Gwendor cut the bonds that held him, and lifting him, they carried him out of the dell. Yet they could bear him no further than to a thicket of thorn trees a little way above. There they laid him down, and now the storm drew very near. Beleg drew his sword Anglachel, and with it he cut the fetters that bound Túrin. But fate was that day more strong, for the blade slipped as he cut the shackles, and Túrin's foot was pricked. Then he was aroused into a sudden wakefulness of rage and fear, and seeing one bending over him with naked blade, he leapt up with a great cry, believing that orcs were come again to torment him. And grappling with him in the darkness, he seized Anglachel and slew Beleg Cuthalion, thinking him a foe. Yeah, so Beleg, best of friends to Túrin, faithful friend, and Túrin slays him. So it's like, there we go, another thing, right? You can't blame this on Túrin, right?
No, you can't.
Túrin
has been dark. He had been tortured and kidnapped, and I think that was a very natural reaction. Mm-hmm. I think that's what anybody would have done. Mm-hmm. But and that makes it clear, right? They said that day fate was more strong. So it makes it very clear that this was not,
Yeah, good point.
You can't blame Túrin. It was fate, right? That's still heartbreaking, completely heartbreaking.
Right. It's very sad, and you start to think if you were Túrin, you'd probably be like, I truly am cursed, right? Yeah. I feel as though everything I touch, I ruin.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, it's interesting to think about that because, page 209, we have this little dialogue between Gwendor and Túrin. And Túrin says to him, "Who are you?" Gwendor says, "A wandering elf, a thrall escaped, whom Beleg met and comforted," said Gwendor. Yet once I was Gwendor, son of Gwilyn, a lord of Nargothrond, until I went to the near Niath Arnoediad and was enslaved in Angband. Then have you seen Húrin, son of Galdor, the warrior of Dorloman, said Túrin. I have not seen him, said Gwendor, but rumor of him runs through Angband that he still defies Morgoth, and Morgoth has laid a curse upon him and all his kin. That I do believe, said Túrin. So Túrin already knows this curse. He already feels it, right? Little sister dies when he's very young. He has to go and leave his mother and grow up in another kingdom. He is picked on by someone, and when he tries to show him up, when he tries to basically defend himself and kind of push back a little bit, the other person ends up dying, and here he kills his best of all friends who has come after him trying to save his life, right? And inadvertently kills him.
Not just once, but like 3 times.
Yeah.
He's come after him, Yeah. I mean, I don't think you find a truer friend than that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, just tragedy upon tragedy,
Yeah. So, Túrin and Gwendor basically head to Nargothrond, is that right?
That's
right.
That's
where Gwendor is.
Now they arose and departed from Ithel Ivrin. And departing from Ithel Ivrin, they journeyed southward along the banks of Narog until they were taken by scouts of the elves and brought as prisoners to the hidden stronghold. Thus did Túrin come to Nargothrond. So I think that's a good stopping point for this week. We've still got lots more to go in this chapter. But we get the real flavor of Túrin is not a lucky man.
No.
Túrin is not a lucky man.
No. He's not doing himself any favors, but I mean, he was dealt a pretty nasty hand to start with.
Indeed he was.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts?
No, I mean, it's meaty. It's a meaty tale.
Yeah.
A lot to dig into, but it's good. It's really good.
Yeah, there's plenty more where that came from. We'll discuss next time.
Yeah.
And I'll look forward to it.
Me too.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, y'all.
Just in case it wasn't clear, next time we'll continue chapter 21 of Túrin Turambar. Don't miss it.
Be there, be square.
That's right. Peace.
Bye, y'all.
Take care. TrueMyths.org for show notes and plenty of other Tolkien goodness. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, would you please leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes? It's a great way to support the show and takes less than a minute. On the next episode, we'll continue our discussion of Chapter 21. Thanks for listening, and until next time, the road goes ever on.